LSU has moved on to 3-0, defeating Florida 20-10. Always a big game, always a big win when you beat Florida. So, congrats to the Tigers. Huge win. It's another step in the right direction. When you see the crazy things going on in college football today and this year as a whole, you can't ever be disappointed with the win. Now, the offense didn't look great. I will admit that. But great win for the Tigers. Always good to beat the Gators. And they beat a hungry and desperate and talented Florida team. So shout out to them for that. Look, got to start off with the defense when you're talking about this game. Dominant effort. I don't know the last time I've seen such a dominant effort. I mean, it's not like they were playing against the children of the poor or incarnate word or somebody stupid. Like, this is Florida. And you shut them down. You held Florida to under 350 yards, and you held a Florida team that had to win, a team that was desperate for a win, a coach that is trying to salvage his job and his season. So that's huge for LSU. Quick recap of the game. Florida came out, like I said, they were hungry. But the LSU defense had to overcome some adversity to do that thing and keep Florida under wraps in this game. So defense, of course, gets an early punch to the gut with the penalty on Whit Weeks, and it was a good call. He hit him squarely in the head. I mean, he knocked his helmet sideways, so that's about as targeting can get. Anyway, you don't want to lose Weeks. Kind of goes back to some of the extracurricular stuff that happened leading up to the game, so emotions were still high. Emotions are always going to be high in a game like this, and I think Weeks maybe let it get the best of them. So Whit Weeks goes out on the first drive of the game on the targeting call. So you're missing maybe your best defensive player, definitely one of your key defensive players, Devon Keys, who we haven't seen that much this week or this year. He steps in for him. Even Zach Weeks got some time today. So you had a lot of guys that stepped up. Anyway, Weeks gets knocked out. LSU is able to get Florida off the field on that first drive. But they couldn't really take advantage of it because the LSU offense started off so slow. The LSU offense just could not get anything going. First three drives of the game, they went 3 and out. The run game was very, very disappointing. And I'm not going to do like a lot of people and take the low-hanging fruit and just blame the offensive line. I gotta give the staff some blame on this running game issues, because you kind of recognize some issues from last year, and you started the year against Clemson, and you got very creative, you got innovative, you found different ways to get players the ball. You found different ways to get the number matchups that you wanted, but you didn't see any of it tonight. You reverted back to the same exact style of run plays that kind of held the offense back last year. You continue to be content with just turning and handing the ball to Caden Durham on inside zone, outside zone. And for the life of me, I don't understand why you thought you were just going to line up and run the ball on Florida. You couldn't line up and run the ball straight up on Louisiana Tech. You got to do something different. Didn't see any of that. Anyway, Florida, I will give them credit. The Florida offense did a great job of staying ahead of the chains, especially in the first half. By now people know that Blake Baker is going to be aggressive. He's going to be very aggressive from game to game. Doesn't really matter who he's playing. And Florida took advantage of that. You saw a lot of screens from Florida. You saw a lot of play action, and not just play action, but play action with boot action, with rolling leg way out, getting them on the move. A lot of misdirection, just making their defense either hesitate or be wrong. And they capitalized with some huge plays off screens to kind of offset the pressure that LSU was bringing. So Florida did a good job of staying ahead of the chains and getting in situations where you were 2nd and 3 or 3rd and short. But to the LSU defense's credit, they did not let them capitalize that often. Whether it was a 3rd and short or whatever, and you're getting absolutely nothing from your offense, the LSU defense time and time again came through and shut the Florida offense down. And this is with a good quarterback. So second quarter, LSU starts to lean on the pass a little bit, and they get Nussmeier in a bit of a rhythm. You have a good drive. You drive down. He got in the groove. The Florida front was still problematic even when you got into that little groove. They had a tough time blocking, and you understand that Braylon Moore was playing hurt, so I'm not going to be that hard on him anyway, even if he wasn't hurt, because he's been one of LSU's most consistent linemen. But he had a tough time with Banks inside, just like last year. Well, not like last year, not to the extent of that. That UF defensive front didn't dominate like last year, but they did present some problems for LSU. But that's no excuse for the effort we saw on offense from LSU tonight. Anyway, eventually on that drive in the second half, when they started to use the pass a little bit more to open up the run, Nuss is able to find Xavier Thomas, and this was a great play design by Joe Sloan. You got Bauer Sharp, tight end, lined up all the way on the outside. Thomas in the slot kind of forces Florida to show their hand. You get Thomas essentially one-on-one with the safety, even though it was a bit of a zone look. He ended up one-on-one with the safety. Great route, great patience by Nussmeier to wait for it, get an accurate throw, and you get LSU's first touchdown of the game to Xavier Thomas. That was a great play, and I want to point that play out, not only because it was the first score, but this LSU offensive line has been much maligned all year. They gave Nussmeier plenty of time. The lack of explosive plays or the lack of production from the offense, maybe you can give them some blame for the run game. I don't give them much because a lot of the run game is a numbers deal, but also you got to give them credit for the time that they gave Nussmeier. He stayed pretty clean pretty much the whole game. So shout out to that line because they hadn't been getting a lot of positive attention, and they did a great job in my eye. Long story short, LSU gets the halftime, the 13-10 lead. Second half, they gave absolutely nothing. The defense was dominant. It gave shades of 2011, especially when it comes to the play of the secondary and the play of the defensive tackles. I can go on and on about that, and I will later, but this was just a crazy defensive effort from LSU. Now, I want to point out, before LSU went up 13-10, Halsey, again, A.J. Halsey, spot on, one of the great offseason pickups. He gets a pick. He's pretty much playing center field. He's reading DJ Lagway the whole time. Steps in, gets the pick as if it was thrown to him, and that gave LSU the opportunity to get more points before the half. And I got to get to this LSU defense, but first, we want to talk a little bit about the second half. And starting that second half, Florida got the ball first, of course, and the LSU defense came out and they set the tone. And it was pretty important because you want to get the ball back to your offense, whether they're going to do something with it or not. You want to come back and get the ball back for your offense, but you also don't want Florida to gain any confidence as the game wears on. If the game goes on in the second half, you don't want them to have any confidence, and you don't want to take that home crowd. Shout out to the LSU home crowd. You could hear it on TV. Like it was the environment that you want for an LSU night game. You know, a lot of times you hear about the LSU night games and they pump the game up. And I hate to bring up a bad memory, but last year against Alabama, this game gets pumped up for 2 weeks. It's LSU at night. It's LSU that got so much to play for. But if you don't come to play, nobody cares. None of that matters. So the defense made enough plays to keep that crowd into it, and the crowd helped to carry the team in the second half. And it doesn't hurt when you come out, you get them off the field, 3 and out in the second half, first possession. The second possession that Florida gets the ball in the second half, you get a pick six with Kevin Spears. And it's going to be a lot of guys I can talk about for this LSU secondary, but it's not Kevin Spears, Deshaun Spears. But it's fun to talk about Deshaun Spears because he went through so much. You saw him last year. He comes in. He's a highly rated recruit. You're kind of hurting at safety, so you need him, and you expect him to come in and make some plays. But he had an up and down year, and it was an adjustment. The physical aspect of the game, coming in, being like they say, a downhill daddy, coming in and being proficient in run support is something that he kind of struggled with at times. Open field tackling, he struggled with at times. But as I said a few days ago, these guys are young and they're allowed to get better. And Spears has not gotten a chance to start this year. He's actually played pretty sparingly, but tonight was an example of being ready, being prepared when your number is called, and he was prepared. You could easily go and sulk and say, oh, well, LSU, when they got these transfers and I can't start, I can't play. No, he prepared. He was ready. He got 2 picks, and the pick six really was enough to finish the game off for LSU because the defense was so dominant. But that was a huge play for that defense, and it was a huge play for him. And it's also a huge play for Baker because now when you got a young guy coming in and producing like that, that gives you more options. It's just more things that you can do with this defense. When you got guys like Halsey and Cooley, now you can throw Spears in there too. So that play was huge in the third quarter. The fourth quarter was just more defensive dominance and more picks. Crazy game for that LSU defense. And before I go too far on that secondary, let's talk about Harold Perkins, because the numbers won't exactly say it won't give a true appreciation of how well and how impactful Perkins was in this game. He was all over the field in run defense and pass defense. And it wasn't so much of a spy this game as he was in previous games like with Klubnik, but he still was a huge part of keeping Lagway in check. Lagway had to scramble a lot more than what he typically wants to in this game because the defensive line was so dominant. But you never thought that he was going to go too far because Perkins was lurking. Perkins was all over the field. And let's see how many tackles he had. Finishes with 6 tackles, 3 solo, no sacks or tackles for loss. But whenever there was a big play to be made, Perkins was either there or he was close to it. So shout out to Perkins for a great game. Talked about Spears and him rebounding from a kind of up and down freshman year. But one of the big parts of getting that production from your secondary is getting that production from that defensive line. And I want to single out a few guys like Bernard Gooden, Dominic McKinley, Jacoby and Guillory. Everything that Florida was to the LSU offensive line last year, these guys were every bit of the same problem to the Florida offensive line. They couldn't block them. They could not block Gooden, McKinley, and Guillory. Holding call after holding call, they could have thrown 10 more flags. Like, they could not block Bernard Gooden and Dominic McKinley. And I was glad to see Guillory get in there too because he brings a different element. He's not the twitchy guy that McKinley is, but the power that he brings to the game puts a lot of pressure on an offense. And the way he plugs the middle of that line is a big reason why Florida couldn't run the ball. Florida has one of the better running backs in the country. Jaden Ball, even though he's only a sophomore, Ball's the truth. He doesn't need much room. One step and he's downhill. He's coming full steam. More times than not, one guy is not going to bring him down. Whether it's one guy or 2 guys, Ball's going to fall forward. He is one impressive back. And LSU held him to 46 yards. So this is one of your better backs in the country. And the average wasn't bad. at 4.6 yards a carry, but you hold a guy like that to 46 yards, and just by holding those carries down, it tells you how dominant your effort was, because they got to a point where they had to get the ball out of his hands and just throw it. He really had more of an impact catching screens than he had running the ball. So I think that's a huge accomplishment for this defense, and it should not be slept on. The defense overcame a lot. Like, you overcame not only with Weeks going out with the penalty early on, but you overcame the injury to West Weeks later on in that game. So you're down 2 starting linebackers, and you hold a team under 350 yards total offense. It's nuts. It's nuts. Now, the same way we talk about the good, we also got to talk about the bad, which is the LSU offense. This is now 2 games. This is 2 consecutive games where we have seen some pretty pathetic outputs. And it's to the point to where it's tough to just explain it away. It's tough to just wave your hand and say that, well, they'll get it together, or they got the weapons, they got the pieces in place, they'll get it right. No, you can't say that. No assumptions can be made at this point, because this offense has issues, and you can't give the same old offensive line scapegoat excuse. You can't just throw everything at the O-line. This failure of the LSU offense is, I think, a result of a few different things, and I want to make sure I'm giving credit to Florida, because they were a big part of the issues that LSU had. I'll give Florida credit in that. But whether you're playing Florida or you playing the New England Patriots, you got to produce more than that. You can't come out and have 316 yards. LSU was outgained 366 to 316 yards. 316 yards is pathetic, and I don't care who you're playing. 316 yards is not gonna cut it if you want to get where you want to go. Now, I'm not gonna sleep on a win. A win is a win, and you're always glad to get that, especially against a quality team. But you also got to look at where you got to pick it up, because your goal coming into the season wasn't to go 3-0. Your goal was to go to the playoffs. So 316 total yards, and 51 of those yards were on the last drive when the game was in hand, when Caden Dunn finally breaks off a run and almost takes it to the house. So that's a 51-yard run. Outside of that run, he's probably averaging like 2 yards a carry. I'm not even going to bother looking it up, because it was that bad, and it ain't his fault. I'm not even putting it on Dunn. He's got to have somewhere to go. But again, that comes back to the offense. You don't have an offense. You don't have personnel to where you can line up and say, I'm going to hand this ball to Caden Dunn, and he's going to get me 5 or 6 yards. And for whatever reason, they just continue to do that over and over and over. But we won't spend the whole show complaining, because it's still a big win, and you take another step forward. There were some good things. Aaron Anderson continues to ball. I will give Joe Sloan credit. He continues to find ways to get them open, find ways to get the best matchups. No defense in the country wants to go into a play with a safety lined up over Aaron Anderson. But if you're creative enough with your formations and your motions, you can create those matchups. And shout out to Sloan for doing it. Over and over, he gets Anderson out in space, and the dude just makes plays. And by now, everybody knows he's going to get it. Whether it's a wide receiver screen or a quick slant, whatever it is, defenses know that Aaron Anderson is going to get the ball, but they can't stop it. So shout out to him. Shout out to the OC for presenting him those opportunities. But with everything that you picked up offensively, tight ends, wide receivers, all these big name transfers, Aaron Anderson is your most reliable guy on offense. And that's saying a lot because we know this LSU offense came into the season with a Heisman candidate in us, but so far as who you can count on, especially in clutch moments, I'm not taking anybody over Anderson right now. But speaking of those transfers, it was good to see Bauer Sharp get a big play. Somebody finally got a big play late in the game. I think it was third quarter. He makes a huge catch. Shows some nice run after the catch ability. He didn't take it all the way to the house, but he showed some good speed for a tight end. So that was a big play for Sharp. They tried to get him involved. The short game was kind of off and on for LSU. They tried the screens the whole game. Things seemed to work much better when they went over the middle, whether it was Anderson or Thomas or whatever, even Brown. They had way more success over the middle, but they tried a lot of those screens, and they hit on a few more times than not. They didn't really get much. But speaking of those screens, it was good to see Nick Anderson get a short screen, look healthy while doing it, make some people miss, make a good gain on first down. Those are the kind of plays that takes pressure off the offense and gives you opportunities to be multiple on second and short. The defense can't really predict what you're going to do. It's like you got an extra down when it's 2nd and 2. So it's good to see Nick Anderson come in and be a part of this offense too. And we're going to do kind of a compliment sandwich here since we said something good. We're going to follow that up with something bad. It's tough to really figure out the issues with Nuss. Last year, I felt like a lot of Nuss's struggles came from the offense putting too much on him, too much in his hands. He had no running game, and they didn't even really give much of an effort for a running game last year. This year, there's been more of an effort. The creativity has been lacking since Clemson. For whatever reason, I can't make sense of that. But they are still running the ball, so they haven't abandoned it. So I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's the expectations. Maybe it's him coming in and feeling like he has to be more of a star, more of a superstar, but he hasn't really been playing like that much because he's taking what the defense is giving him, but he's been hesitant. And you get control of the game, you get late in the game, and that's when he tries to make something happen that isn't there, which was honestly shocking because, you've been conservative the whole game and you make this decision in the fourth quarter to throw against your body to a guy that's covered when you just didn't have to do it. It was no need for that play. It was baffling, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but it was just a head-scratching play. Like, why do you do that at this stage of the game? It's almost as if he thought he was behind or something. Like, why do you make that throw and give Florida a chance to get back in the game? But this is going to come down to Nuss, Brian Kelly, and Joe Sloan as far as how to get them back on track. And they're going to have to find ways to get them comfortable, get them confident again, and get them to be decisive. As I said earlier in the show, more times than not, he had plenty of time. This LSU offensive line gave Nuss plenty of time to throw the ball. And there were times where it seemed as though he was a little rushed. He looked down the field and he checked down immediately. Or he even took off running a couple of times. But I'm cool with that. I'm cool with you putting the ball down and running. Of course, the best gain he gets nullified by a penalty. That's just LSU's luck. But I guess that's part of the reason the run was so successful too. But in either way, it's good to see it. It's good to see him decide to pull it down from time to time. But that's not going to be Nuss's game, putting the ball down. So let's hope for LSU's sake that he can get out of his head and be the quarterback that he was, because he's got so much more support this year, especially defensively, than he had last year. Like, you don't have to do everything this year. You don't have to put the team on your shoulders. You got good running back, multiple good running backs. You got receivers that can also carry the ball, and you have a dominant defense. I cannot go on it. I mean, I can't say enough about this LSU defense. And look, I might catch hell for this, but I got to say it. Hey, DBU is back. DBU is back, baby. You got, 4 different guys with picks? You hold DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway threw the ball almost 50 times, and he averaged 5.9 yards per completion. That's bad if you didn't know. I'm not one of these people who thinks that stats tell the whole story and you can glean everything from a game from stats, but 5.9 yards per completion is bad. 1 touchdown and 5 picks is worse. That's awful from Lagway. And Lagway is a guy who I had a lot of confidence in coming into this year. I thought he was going to make a big step forward, and I was so intrigued by his physical tools and his poise in the pocket as a freshman. But you got to remember, he's still young. He missed a lot of practice reps, and he hasn't been in a lot of environments like this. Like, he hadn't been to too many Tiger stadiums. He was hurt a good portion of last year. At Texas, he didn't play in that game. So you got to remember, a lot comes from experience, and I hate to say it, but Napier might not be around by the time he's experienced enough to take Florida where he really can take them. Like, he hasn't reached his potential. This was an awful game, but this was a bad spot for him because Florida couldn't run the ball, and this defense was everywhere, and he didn't have time. So if you don't have time, nobody's open, everything's on you, you're going to see some stuff like that. Now, I wouldn't have guessed you'd see 5 picks, but hey, here we are. Spears had 2 picks. Halsey had 1. Cooley had 1. DJ Pickett got in on the fun against the home state school. So it had to be fun for DJ Pickett to come in and get that pick for Florida, which was kind of like a sacrifice. He just threw up for him, but I think he was trying to throw that one away. Either way, it resulted in a pick for Pickett. Even guys who didn't get interceptions, they still played a hell of a game. Guys like Mansell Delane. What more can we say about Delane? When you got a guy that can shut down a side of the field like that, that gives you so much freedom defensively. Like, Blake Baker can't send all these people if nobody can cover. Like, you can't send Devon Keys on the blitz if you worry about getting beat deep. Delane was giving nothing. Woodland was giving nothing. And it wasn't just the deep stuff. They were jumping the quick stuff. Florida tried, not only did they do a lot of screens, they tried a lot of the quick games to try to get the ball out of Lagway's hands because they couldn't block that front. And LSU saw that. They capitalized on it, and Woodland almost got a pick jumping a slant. Like, these guys were super aggressive. You got 5 picks, and you really could have had more. Woodland dropped 1. Perkins dropped 1. There was nowhere to go. It was smothering coverage, and it wasn't just from your cornerbacks. It was also from your safeties. So, just a completely dominant effort by the LSU defense. When you see a defense like that and an offense that bad, it kind of makes you think about, is this 2011 all over again? Is LSU just going to ride a defense all the way to the playoffs and just try not to lose the game on offense? Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think the LSU offense will improve because it's just so much talent. It's hard to see a scenario where they won't improve, but at the same time, you can't assume that's the case either. They're not going to improve just by showing up. They got to get to work. They got to get on the whiteboard. They got to figure out some things that's going to work. Florida is not the last great defense they're going to see. You got South Carolina in a couple of weeks. You got Alabama down the road. You got to go to Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss isn't going to show you the front that they showed you last year. you're still playing at Ole Miss. So there, it's really a great game in the sense that you got the win, but you also got exposed in some areas. You're going to have to, maybe be a little bit more selective about how or when you send extra guys if you Blake Baker. And I'm definitely not criticizing his game plan because, like as I said, the defense won the game. This was far and away a defensive game, but he was able to learn some things in that, and you learned a lot about your offense. You have a lot to work on, so you get the win, but you can still remain hungry and get right back to work. I'm sure this offensive staff, as well as the offensive personnel, is going to be ready to get back to work and figure out some things as far as how they can hold up their end. It's kind of wild to see this team go from such an extreme to another, from one year to another. You go and you had a very productive offense and an offense that's carrying the team in 24 and they can't get any support from the defense. And you go from there to having a defense that's winning games for you and an offense that's coming up and scoring 20 points and not even getting you 320 total yards. So you kind of got a bit of a role reversal there, but hey, look, that's how it is sometimes. But you got the win, and that's the main thing. So moving forward, you know where you need to improve. Look, we know by now that Nussmeier is a talented guy. We know that he can produce and he will produce, but it needs to come sooner than later because these games go by fast. And look, anybody can get it. South Carolina, their quarterback goes down. They get blown out by Vanderbilt. Georgia looked like they were going to get run out of the building at one point, but they were able to stick with it and win. There's more parity in college football than there has been probably in my lifetime, as long as I've been old enough to watch it and pay attention. There are no gimmies. There are no sure things. So you kind of got to be at your best as much as humanly possible. And, you're going to have some letdowns sometimes. You're going to have some of these Louisiana Tech games. But you just got to keep that to a minimum and continue to improve because anybody can beat you. You're thinking about South Carolina, and I'm not saying Southeastern is going to, hey, look, if Southeastern beats you, heads are going to roll. You might be going to wherever Billy Napier is going at the end of the season, but maybe a Vanderbilt, So, yeah, you got to continue to just look for ways to improve, but you have possibly the most impressive defense I've seen in college football to start with, and an offense that can only get better. There's nowhere to go but up for this offense. So, again, big game for LSU, big win. You're now 3-0. Everything is still on the table. So things could be a lot worse than not putting out the offensive production that you wanted to. Till next time, like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok and Twitter. Catch y'all later.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, showstopper. 7 years with the voice of college football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.